Hi, I'm Patty Hodge, and this is Dr. Nurses Rock. This video is part of a series on grief that's being presented throughout the month of April this year. Today's video is about creating a ritual to help you move through grief. Some of the things that I'd like you to consider about grief include the fact that it doesn't come with an instruction booklet. There's no one right way to grieve. Some of us know that grief doesn't follow a schedule. It shows up when it wants to. It also doesn't ask permission. It doesn't make life easy. Sometimes we just have to give ourselves the grace to let it happen and help ourselves move through in a way that helps us feel safe and okay. It is okay to take care of ourselves. And when we lose someone, it's okay to do something to honor their memory. We don't just lose the person or the pet or whatever it is that we are feeling this tremendous loss about. We lose the routine we had around that being. We lose conversations. We lose traditions and small everyday moments that before seemed so normal and natural now feel so bereft. We feel a need to remember that person or that being. We need to feel connected, and we need to honor all of those things. This is where a ritual comes in. A ritual is an intentional act. It helps us express what our words can't. They give a structure to our emotional well-being. They create a space for us to remember. And they allow us to continue a bond with the being that has passed, with those who are no longer physically here with us. So some of the meaningful things that I have seen people do throughout my lifetime, some of them are very simple as lighting a candle. Now, that is a tradition that has gone back thousands of years. You don't have to go to church to do that. Many people have candles in their home. We light birthday candles or holidays or for a special meal. It cannot hurt to light a candle and sit quietly and remember your loved one. And then remember to extinguish the candle and send them off for the blessing. Other things I've seen people do is go to a special place that reminds them of time with that person or pet that they loved being with at that place. Some people will mark a special bench. Some people will buy a paving stone with the person's name engraved in it. What we do doesn't have to be grand, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to cost a whole lot of money. What we do should just be meaningful to us and help us to remember and to give thanks. That's what we're doing when we create a ritual. I've seen people plant flowers in their yard. I've seen people do private rituals and public rituals. Other simple things that you can do is create a memory space in your home. That could be a small portion of your desk, or maybe a part of the bookshelf, or a special place in your kitchen where you just have a picture or some memento that reminds you of your loved one. Another thing to do that may feel strange and difficult for some people is to write letters, or a letter to your loved one if there's some unfinished business or something that you wish you had said that you didn't get a chance to say. writing a letter or writing in your journal are private things. The other thing you might want to consider that I would love people to do when I'm gone is to plant trees. Plant trees in the honor of your loved one. It not only helps the planet, it's a more lasting memory for your loved one. Other rituals that my family has engaged in is creating a recipe that a loved one passed down through the years. You've heard me speak about this in other videos where my daughter makes great rice balls. She was taught to do that by my grandmother. And we look forward to them on holidays and other special occasions. So those are just a few things that I've seen people do. I would love to know what you do, and it would help the community here if you shared what you do or what you have done. These rituals help us carry our grief with a little more intention and a little more connection and a little more love. So whoever you're remembering today, I hope you find a way to honor them that feels true to your heart. Right now, I'd like to share with you a story that I wrote several years ago and originally published on medium.com. This is a story about how a community honored my father. This story is called The Plaque on the Ambulance. Only some of us knew what it truly meant. My father was a smart and funny guy with the soul of a poet. He was a genuine family man. In his prime, he was active in the community, owning a business in town and serving on the elementary school board. Dad was part of the generation that valued stepping up to care for one another. People trusted him, especially in a crisis. When I was a preteen, my best friend, Diane, was a Girl Scout. Her mother, Mrs. G, was the den mother. They both convinced my mother that it would be a good thing to let me join the Scouts. Mom didn't drive, but Mrs. G did and would help me get to and from meetings and activities, giving Dad a driving break. Diane and I worked on achieving the Girl Scouts first aid badge. My father was all about anything medical, so I knew he would approve. He was the oldest son of a Sicilian immigrant and a first-generation Irish girl from Ohio. Had life treated him differently, he would have been a doctor. Anything that might push one of his kids in that direction was a go. To earn the badge, we attended a first aid course at a local ambulance corps. At the end of the course, the instructor did a pitch for volunteers. We were too young, but they told us to ask the adults we knew if they might be interested in volunteering with the corps. I spoke up and said my dad told us stories of driving a meat wagon, slang for an ambulance in the Army. The instructor gave me his contact info and told me to tell my dad to call him. Dad joined the ambulance corps. These were the years when CPR was just introduced and long before professional EMTs, although he earned the designation later. He would be on call on weekends when he wasn't working. There would be severe injuries, usually related to car accidents, that he would give us some details about, but I can't recall him ever talking about fatalities. Dad took deaths hard. When he was 17, he lost his father in a work-related accident. He never fully recovered from that loss. He told a story about being behind the wheel, sitting in his vehicle after his father died. The horn honked on its own, and he believed it was his father saying goodbye. It was about that time that Dad's tenure behind the wheel began. He took a job driving a truck with the same trucking company his father worked for. Soon after, World War II called him to duty. Then he married Mom, who he chauffeured everywhere. His vehicle was his refuge, where he could sit and listen to his beloved jazz uninterrupted. He wouldn't go to church, but he drove our devout mother to Mass every week. He'd sit in the car and wait. Same for weekly grocery shopping trips or shopping for clothes or school supplies. Add 4 kids who couldn't drive until their teens, and insurance sales agent jobs that required travel, and the man spent a good quarter of his life in a car. He was doing his chauffeur thing one day in December 1978 when a major event happened. His mother's youngest sister was a semi-cloistered nun. Aunt Irene came to visit for a couple of days, and he drove her to the train station for her return to the convent. While waiting, he saw a young girl fall under a passenger train. Dad ran to help. It had severed her leg above the knee. He used his belt as a tourniquet, which saved her life. Other help arrived. They secured her leg and carefully packed it. In a rare 5-hour surgery, the doctors successfully reattached her leg. They awarded Dad the State Emergency Medical Technician of the Year award. It was his most public act of heroism, but we knew his countless, quiet, everyday, heroic acts that good men rarely get recognition for. 10 years later, he left us too soon, dying on an operating table. Dad was 65. He made it known over the years that he did not want a funeral and didn't want our last memories of him to be in a coffin. We had to get creative. The ambulance corps allowed us to use their facility to hold a memorial service for him. Family and friends gathered to pray, play music, and share stories. I was sure he would approve. A year later, the ambulance corps invited us to another ceremony. They created a brass plaque in honor of Dad. They mounted it on one of their rigs. It stayed on the rig for a year after he died. Then they removed it and presented it to us. In a most poetic way, Dad had continued to be present to those in need. Thank you for listening to that story. If it moved you, I ask you to leave a comment and let us know what rituals you are doing to help you through a difficult time with grief. Thanks for being here. Bye for now.